and this flight was distinct for a couple of reasons. The mission was commanded by NASA astronaut Nicole Mann, who became the first indigenous woman to go to space. It was also the first time a Russian cosmonaut flew to the ISS on board a SpaceX Dragon spacecraft. Since that point, there has been a continuous seat swap agreement between NASA and Roscosmos. So its Soyuz flights to the ISS include one NASA astronaut, and so far all the Dragon flights include one cosmonaut. The next flight of this booster, 1077, came on January 18th, 2023, the launch of the GPS-3 Space Vehicle number 6 satellite. This one was named Amelia Earhart. Launch number 3 came a month later. That was on February 18th when it launched the Inmarsat 6F2 satellite. That was followed up by the 4th flight on March 29th, the launch of 56 Starlink version 1.5 satellites. That was the Starlink 5-10 mission. The 5th launch came on June 5th when it launched a Cargo Dragon spacecraft to the ISS. That was SpaceX's 28th Commercial Resupply Services Contract 2 mission, or CRS-28. It sent more than 7,000 pounds of research and supplies up to the ISS. There were also a pair of rollout solar arrays that help augment the power supply on the orbiting outpost to this day. 6th launch came on August 3rd when this booster sent up the Galaxy 37/Horizons 4 satellite for Intelsat. This is part of the company's constellation refresh to meet FCC requirements. Flights 7, 8, and 9 were all Starlink missions. Those were Starlink 6-13 on September 1st, 6-25 on October 30th, 6-33 on December 7th. 10th flight of this booster, another unique mission, sending up Northrop Grumman's Cygnus spacecraft on the NG-20 mission, coming on January 30th. As part of the company's commercial resupply services contract with NASA, bringing science and supplies to the International Space Station. Currently, SpaceX and Northrop Grumman are the only two companies flying cargo to the ISS, but that's poised to change later this year when United Launch Alliance and its Vulcan rocket sends up Sierra Space's Dream Chaser spaceplane with cargo on board, beginning its CRS contract missions. And finally, most recently for now, this booster launched the Starlink 6-43 flight that was back on March 10th of this year. We are now T-minus 9 minutes, 40 seconds and counting. A little less than 3 minutes away from the start of that engine chill down sequence, blowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps on those 9 Merlin 1D engines and helping to protect them from the risk of thermal shock and damage. An introduction, if you're just now joining us or joined us since we talked about it at the start of the broadcast. Taking a satellite view of the pad here where the Falcon 9 will leave from. This is Historic Launch Complex 39A. After the T0 liftoff, which again is targeting 5:26 p.m. Eastern, 21:26 UTC, now that fueling is underway. Apologies for technical snafu. We're jumping ahead of ourselves a little bit. We'll come back to that in just a moment. Falcon 9 will fly in a southeasterly trajectory, as is the case with all the missions heading to the 6th shell of the Starlink constellation. Falcon 9 first stage vehicle following stage separation will land on one of SpaceX's 3 drone ships. It's got 2 over here in Florida, and the one on deck tonight is just read the instructions. The fairing halves will be jettisoned a little bit down range of the map you see here on your screen, and it'll be scooped up by the recovery vessel Bob. Doug is actually also out in the Atlantic getting positioned for the Starlink launch on deck for tomorrow night as the Starlink 6-52 mission. So if you know someone who was hoping to catch tonight's launch and they just can't get away from whatever they're doing, but they've got some time tomorrow, go ahead and tell them to come on back, and we'll be right here with you for a live launch coverage of that mission as well. Here's an image of what the fairing halves look like as they're coming down, splashing in the ocean waters under a parachute. SpaceX saves about $6 million per recovery. This is what that operation looks like when they scoop them up out of the water. Now, T minus 4 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. At this point, they're expecting the strong back sequence to get underway at the moment. And as we're getting in the loop on the strong back retract sequence, let's go ahead and just very briefly touch on the Falcon 9 itself. It stands about 70 meters, 229 feet tall, with a diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. The hissing and humming you're hearing are the sounds from the pad there, as we're now getting SpaceX mission audio. So if you hear me pause, I'm trying to not talk over SpaceX, and I will attempt to not stumble across those call outs. Most of the vehicle made up by the first stage. Again, this vehicle is flying for a 12th time today. It's got 9 Merlin 1D
Stage
engines.
one LOX load is complete.
Fully fueled, produces 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Above the first stage, of course, the inner stage, you can see those titanium winglets that provide stability and steering. Those are hypersonic grid fins. The top of the inner stage are mechanical latches that attach to the second stage. The first stage managed to cut off high pressure helium and used to release them before pneumatic pushers ensure a clean separation. Also housed in the inner stage is the second stage engine nozzle. The Merlin vacuum engine, or the MVAC engine, produces more than 200,000 pounds of thrust. It'll be fired twice on today's flight, placing the 23 Starlink satellites into their intended orbit. Burns the same propellant mix, that RP1 and liquid oxygen, same as the first stage. It'll burn once more after satellite deployment to drive the upper stage back into the atmosphere, where it will burn up, helping to eliminate the risk of creating space debris. Finally, up top are the payload fairings, made up of a carbon composite material standing 13.1 meters or 43 feet tall, with a width of 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
With that, we hear Stage 2 LOX load is complete. The Falcon 9 is now fully fueled with 1 million pounds of propellant. What you're seeing here are the ground gas closeouts. Should hear the call for that momentarily.
Ground gas closeouts.
With the good call, we're just about a minute away from liftoff. If you haven't already, be sure to hit the like button, allow some more folks to find their way in. And we'll come back to the super chats in just a moment, but want to very quickly thank channel member Artemis for a very generous $100
Falcon
super
9
chat.
is in startup.
Thank you so much, Artemis. Really appreciate you supporting us on that level, saying keep spreading the science, guys. Awesome job. And with 40 seconds to go, we should hear the SpaceX launch director give their call for go for launch, right on schedule. We're now just about T-minus 30 seconds to liftoff. "15 seconds. And here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition and liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket on the Starlink 6-51 mission. The Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. In a beautifully composed shot as the Falcon 9 rocket soars above the skies here in the Sunshine State. Now 30 seconds to flight. Let's listen to the roar of those 9 Merlin engines. Now a minute into flight, we're coming up on max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Great tracking shots from our friend P. Carsons with Max Q Productions, speaking of. It's from our own Adam Bernstein tracking camera. And this from Chuck Briggs. A call for MVAC chill. They're thermally conditioning the Merlin upper stage engine prior to its ignition. Coming up in the next minute, we'll see a few different events in rapid succession. First will be stage separation, main engine cutoff, followed by stage separation, and then second stage engine start. And fairing deployment just before 3 minutes into flight. We're now 10 seconds from MECO, main engine cutoff. There you see MECO. Oh, great shot.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation.
And you see those views of stage separation. Nice onboard camera shots and great tracking work by our team here. This particular view on the left-hand side of your screen from P. Carsons, but some great camera angles from Adam and Chuck as well. And you see the payload fairings deployed there, reflecting the light of the sun.
Power into telemetry nominal.
Falcon is supersonic. Max Q. MVAC chill has started. Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation.
And evac ignition.
Bearing separation. Stage 1 FTS has safed.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Stage
Stage
2
1
FTS
entry
has
burn
safed.
shutdown. Stage 1 transonic.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing burn. Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
MVAC shutdown. Nominal park orbit insertion.